Okay, so welcome everybody, and we're on the bottom of Yud Chesam with Beis, the bottom line. The Mishnah said that the megillah has to be written with black ink, dio, and not with other kinds of ink. And said a few examples of the inks that are not kosher. Sam, Sikra, Kumbus, Kankantum. Yeah. If I can stop 1 second, please. So the Gemara explains what these things are. It isn't so relevant because they're all not good. Only so I don't have an exact translation. Sam is sama, and Rashi. I talk about Rashi and tell us what these things might mean. They say different kind of chemicals here, orpiment, vitriol. I'm not sure what they are. And the point is going to be that you have to have dafka dio. So whatever's not good, l'chor is not so relevant to know the exact translation. And what does sikra mean? Amar Rabba Barbachana Sikarta Shma, which usually is translated as some kind of a red ink. Kumus, they translate it as kuma, which sounds like gum. They say that that's maybe gum Arabic, that they sometimes use for these ingredients to make these things. Oh, went off? Did it totally off? Why did it go off? 1 second.
God.
Try it again. Let's see if it goes on. Okay. See what happens.
You tell God that we need an emergency. God, if the screen doesn't go at all. Yeah, everything's plugged in.
I'm not sure. Okay. Okay. We'll try further. Kankantum.
Not working, but thanks for trying.
Kankantum. What is kankantum? Charta dushkafi is some kind of a black shoe polish. But the question is, what is dio? So everything, it says all kinds of things that are not good. The question is, what is good? So it says dio. What is dio? So I think that the standard ink that the Sofrim use, the only condition is say that it should be black, and doesn't have to have any other conditions.
Why does it say dio? Why don't you say shapor?
I'm not sure. And the Pasha says charta dushkafi. I'm not some kind of shoe polish, but it seems that one might not have been black. I'm not sure, and I don't know. In the standard Sofrim, all kinds of inks that they sell for Sofrim, I think that they don't have dafka any recipe. There are those that are makbid to use the way it was made in the olden days, but I think the standard psak is that any kind of black ink is good. Just make sure that it's black. Sometimes it's a navy or something like that, so it's not acceptable. It has to be black.
So really, you could use a black pen.
And I could use a black pen. Some are makbid that it should be it should be made from kosher ingredients, and some makbid on that. They say that Pilot doesn't use any animal ingredients, so it'll be kosher. So as far as I know, most inks for Sofrim don't have any special ingredients. There are some those that are makbid to make it the way it was does in the olden days, and I think the standard psak says you don't have to have that. Then the Mishnah talks about what kind of paper, and it says that diphthera is not good, niyar is no good, and you have to have dafka cloth. Diphthera, the maliach, the kamiyach, below office. There are 3 stages of the process of processing the parchment. One is that they put into salt, and then with flour, and then upfits, which is a fatzim, which Rashi translates as gallstones, gall nuts. And this was not fully processed, so it was only 2 out of the 3 processes. So it's also not good. It has to be fully processed. Taisus points out that nowadays they don't use fatzim, and most places that they use sid, they use lime in order to process the tan, the hides, and they don't use tannins. They used to use tannins. So that's the question: if you have to use a fatzim or not. The standard Sifrei Torah and everything that you find is klaf. It's not processed that way. Some are makbid nowadays try to get a fatzim, which is a different chemical process of how it works out klaf. And nior is machka, which Rashi chooses to translate as papyrus, some kind of paper, and everything is not good. It has to be dafka be klaf, and the question is how to process it. And most understand, just to point out the Taisus over here. Taisus says that nowadays we don't use klafim shalonu. They don't use a fatzim. Is it good enough? Taisus says, Meritam says that sid that we use accomplishes the same thing that a fatzim does. Some argue, some talk about that the afatzim, when you use the tannin, so then it makes a chemical change in the parchment, which the Sid does not. So those people that are machmir to use dafka, the old way of how to process the cloth. The Mishnah continued. Now, there's a gersa issue over here. Some take out all these words over here. I'm sorry, I'm not able to put these words and these, but to take out the whole thing, so we'll skip it. And the Mishnah in itself that said Ashuris wasn't clear that it has to be dafka Hebrew writing. We said that it could be that it doesn't have to be Hebrew writing. The Pasha says, the Gemara says that you could write it in a different script. We said also different language. If you understand the language, that was yesterday's sugya. So we'll skip that line and go on to Sefer B'dio, that it has to be dafka on parchment and dio, black ink, and that the Gemara brings a source form and all on Ashi Ksiv Ksiva. We learn Xer Shava link Ksiv Hacha Vatchtov. This is the word Vatchtov Ksiva Vatchtov Asay Malka. And even though the Pashtan over there doesn't mean she wrote the Megillah, but the Gemara is dashing it like that. It's going on the Megillah Esther. Ksiv Hasam, another pasuk altogether different in Yirmiyah. Vayom Alehem Baruch mi Piv Yikro Eli is called Adavarim Ma'ila Bani Kosev Ala Sefer B'Dio. Over there, Yirmiyah was dictating to Baruch ben Neriah what to write, and it said, he read it, he said it, and I wrote it, and it says B'Sefer B'Dio on parchment with black ink, and it says over there the word Kosev. So here it says Vatichtov Esther, and here it says Ani Kosev. Has to be the same kind of reading, so it has to be written on parchment with black ink. That's the halacha about the Megillah Esther also.
Okay, good.
Okay. Next Mishnah. Ben here. Ben Yishalach L'Krach or Ben Krach Shalach Lier. So we know from the beginning of the Masechta that a person who lives in an unwalled city reads it on the 14th. If he lives in a walled city, since Yeshua Ben Nun, that's called the Krach, and he reads on the 15th. What if somebody is temporarily out of his home place and he's visiting someplace else? So it says if a 14 person went to a 15 place, a walled city, or the opposite, someone lives in a 15 in a walled city, went to a open city. So what does he go? When is Purim for him? When does he read the Megillah? Is it on the 14th or the 15th? Does he go according to where he lives or according to where he presently is? So it says it depends if he's going back. If he eventually is going to go back home, then he's considered back home. And if not, then he goes to the place where he is. The words of the Mishnah alone would have been mashma that if he goes with his permanent address. The Mishnah would sound like other places where it says Minhag HaMakom or Yantav Sheni. Goes according to if he's eventually going to go home, then he's considered still back home. If he's permanently moving, but the Gemara is going to say that doesn't mean that. The Gemara is going to say that this is an exception, and here it goes according to his temporary residence. Even a one-day residence is also going to be according to the place that he's here for temporarily. So we'll see that in the Gemara, and the Mishnah wouldn't be able to tell. The next Mishnah, altogether different subject. How much does a person have to read the Megillah? So we would say, of course, you have to read the whole Megillah. It's not so simple. We do pass like that, but there was a machlokis. That's why we pass. You have to read the whole Megillah in order to be Yotzei. If you missed the beginning, the word, no good. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Ish Yehudi, that he does have to read from Ish Yehudi, which introduces Mordechai into the scene, and that's why you have to read. You don't have to read the beginning. From when Gidol HaMelech Haman, when Haman comes onto the scene. So there are three opinions in our Mishnah. We're going to see in the Gemara a fourth opinion, and we pass like the first. You have to read the whole Megillah, and the Gemara is going to explain the reasons for each opinion. So we're going back to the beginning of the Mishnah that if you are a walled city person that's visiting a open city or open city visiting a walled city, what are you considered? Are you considered a mukaf or a poros? Are you considered according to your permanent address or according to your temporary address? So the Mishnah said that if you're going to go back, you're considered back home and not where you are presently. But the Gemara says, when he says he's going to go back, he's going to go back at night, the night of the 14th, and when it comes the morning of the 14th, he's going to be back home. That's the heart of Pashtan the Gemara, that the criteria of what kind of person you are, a 14 or a 15, is decided by where you are when the morning of the 14th arrives. Where are you in the morning of the 14th?
Why say you
can go back the whole night. That means by the time it comes, it says that right now on Purim, the Leil Yudal, he's going to a certain place, but he's not home. If he's going to go back home by the whole night, over the whole night, means by the time the morning arrives, so then he's considered back home because he woke up. He's present. He's existence. He's in the city that he lives in the morning of the 14th. But if he's in a different place, then he goes according to the place that he is. So the Pashup Shat, there are many posts come over here, many. The Mishnah Berurah says it's a confusing sugya, and the one place that I think the Mishnah Berurah says don't rely on me la'alacha with a bracha. He says it's a hard sugya. I'm not sure, but the simple shot is that it goes according to where the person is found in the morning of the 14th.
Now,
If he's
by the
in,
way, I want to just tell me if I'm correct, because the ikar mitzvah megillah is by day. So megillah so goes by
Maybe.
not by night.
maybe. So if a person in the morning of the 14th is in an unwalled city, so then he's a 14 person. If he's in the morning of the 14th in a walled city, so then he's a 15 person. And even if we don't care where he's going to be, where he was before, where he's going to be after. It has to do. That's where he's going to. That's the day that he's going to be the megillah. If he's not going to get back home by during the night till the morning of the 14th, then he's going to be considered the place that he is presently, not where he's going back. How do I know that this is exception? This is very different. Usually we go according to where his permanent resident is. If he's eventually going to go back, or he's only visiting temporarily, here we're saying it has to do with the one day. That's all the pasuk. It says, therefore, the Jews who live in open cities, and it says twice, the open city Jews who live in open cities, that's very redundant. Mechti, let's analyze. It says already the open city Jews. Why does it repeat itself? It must be coming to tell you, even a one-day porus, a one-day person who lives in an open city, he's called a porus. And therefore, even though he doesn't permanently live there, if right now, even though he lives really in a walled city, but right now he's a one-day porus, he's considered a porus, he reads on the 14th. The Gemara says that's only one direction. Ashkelon porus, that's a person who lives in a walled city, and now he's a temporary porus, he's considered a porus, and he reads on the 14th. How about the opposite? Mukapanolan, somebody from an unwalled city comes to a walled city. How do you know that he's considered a walled person, a 15 person, even if it's only for one day? Svarahum, the porus ben yom makari porus, mukaf ben yom makari mukaf. That already we can figure out. The same way that a one-day porus is considered a porus. You go according to his temporary residence. So too, a mukaf also goes according to a temporary residence. If he's one day in the morning of the 14th is in a walled city, then he's considered a 15 person, and he's going to be on the 15th. Nugamara, ben kfar shalach li'ir, ben kach ben kach karima. This is a chiddush that even though we had in the beginning of Masechta that a ben kfar, those are the small villages that they need to go into the big city, and we made a kula based on a remez in the Megillah that they could even read the 11th, 12th, 13th, and it goes according to the Monday and Thursday that precedes Purim. So if Purim came out on Monday and Thursday, there's no difference. But if it comes out on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, so they always read the previous Monday and Thursday. But here the Gemara says a big chiddush that we didn't have yet, that if he happens to be in the big city on the right day of Purim, so he's going to have to read again. Even though he read, let's say, it comes out on Tuesday and Wednesday, and he read already on Monday, like the Mishnah in the beginning of the parak. But now he happens to be on the real day, on the 14th. He happens to be Tuesday. He happens to be in the big city. He has to read again, even though he read the Megillah again. My time, and why is that so? Because he should have really read on the 14th, like that's really the din to read on the 14th. And Rabbanan were lenient that he could read it earlier only because it says here kedei, but we changed it before a couple of pages ago that not kedei but mipnei, in order, because since he anyway is coming in anyway, so why trouble him to come again? He can read it earlier. But that's only if it's a trouble to come in again. He's back home in his kfar and it's difficult to come in, so don't have to come in again. But if he happens to be here, so read again. Yeah, really the din is on the 14th, and that's the din that even if somebody would have read in the earlier Monday and Thursday, because whatever reason he read earlier, so if he's able to read on the right day, he has to read again on the 14th. Abai had a kasha on this. He had a price that said the following: that was a price Abai had. The words itself say that a ben krach, which means a walled city person that went to an open city. So in any case, if he's going to come back, he's not going to come back. Korakim komo, that he reads according to the 15th. He reads as if he would be back home. That's what the words say simply. That's what the words say. But the Gemara right away says you can't read it the way it says. Something's wrong over here. Ben krach salkadaitach doesn't mean that a walled city person he reads on the 15th, even if he's going to be in an open city. We just said in the Mishnah that it doesn't mean that. I mean, not the Mishnah, but also the Mishnah didn't differentiate between a ben krach and a ben ir, so it goes according to the temporary residence. So then there shouldn't be a difference if it's a ben krach or a ben ir. So you can't say that a 15 person in any case, he's going to be on the 15th. If he happens to be in a city, in an open city, he's going to be on the 14th. Then must have lost the Italian also. The Mishnah says that. Depends if he's going to go back. So the Bryce is going to be against the Mishnah. The Gemara doesn't want to say that. Elulav ben kfar. You have to change the girsa that it was a mistake, not ben kfar. This word is a mistake. It should be ben kfar. We're talking about the village person who, and it says here the opposite of what Rava said. If you change this word and it says ben kfar, so it says the village person who went into the big city, he just reads according to where he is, like the village. He doesn't have to read again like the big city. So the Bryce is against you. The Gemara says, you see the Bryce is a mistake. The first word, this word you have to change anyway. So then don't be so sure the Bryce is quoted correctly. This word is also a mistake. Don't say so Rav is right. We go back to Rav, he's correct. And Ben Kfar, the villager, that we gave him a leniency to be able to read the previous Monday and Thursday. That's true. But if he happens to be on the right day, on the 14th, he might happens to be in the big city, so then he should read again on the 14th. The Mishnah continued about how much of the Megillah you have to read. So we had three opinions in the Mishnah, from the beginning, from Ish Yehudi, or from Haman, from and that is the fourth opinion. Tanya, that you start from I think it's Parak 6, and that's where Achashverosh couldn't sleep at night, and that's where everything started turning, that he asked to bring the Chronicles, and he saw about Mordechai, and that's how then the rest of the Megillah continues. So that's the fourth opinion. From the beginning, it's Yehudi, Haman, or from Balaylahu. All four opinions are getting it to the same pasuk. There's a question on how to understand this pasuk, and that's going to have the four possibilities. What does it say in the pasuk? Esther and Mordechai, they wrote Kol Tokef. Tokef means like the strength, but it doesn't say clearly which strength. Which strength did they write down? I think more again understands that it means not what you have to write. It's not the Megillah. The whole thing has to be written. We'll see soon. But how much you have to read? Manda Makula, he's going to understand Tokef Lachashverosh. Manda Amar Mishudi, Tokef Shal Mordechai. Manda Amar Machashvar Meila, Tokef Shal Haman. Manda Amar B'Laylahu, Tokef Shal Neis. The strength. What is the strength? So the essence. So either it's going to be Achashverosh, which means from the beginning, or Mordechai, which means it's Yehudi, or Haman, where it says Achadvar Meila, that's when he came on high, and Mandama Balaylahu, that's when the miracle started. The miracle that was planted already before. We said that the Bixen and Seresh, like Gemara says that Kadosh Baruch Hu made the reform before the Makkah, but the actual day started being activated when Achashverosh couldn't sleep and he got the Chronicles, so that's when it took for Shalnes. The Gemara says the same four opinions could have gotten it from a different pasuk. Rafuna says that the four opinions are coming from the following pasuk, and again, each one reads it differently. That's also what it says over there, that they wrote down, and they're supposed to read what they saw because of, and what happened to them. The result of that. And the other Gemara is going to say four possibilities how to understand that. One is going to be Madam Akula. The one that says you have to read the whole Megillah. It means Ma Rachashverosh Neshamash Bekele Mishal Beis HaMikdash. And the answer is Al Kacha, because of the following reason, Mishim Dechashiv Shimon Shan and Below Yifruk. And then Ma Igi Aleim means the Katil. I just have to adjust the size over here. The Katil Vashti. So what did Achashverosh see? That he used the Kelim of the Beis HaMikdash. Why was he not scared to do that? Because he made the cheshbon of the 70 years. He thought that they were not yet redeemed. So that's why it's over. In the third year, that's when he felt comfortable, and that's why he took out the Kelim. What happened as a result? The Katal Vashti. He ended up killing Vashti. That's the Madama says you have to read the beginning story also. But another Madama says that it's enough to read from Mordechai. Why is that? Madam Ish Yehudi, it's going to be Ma'ra Mordechai. What did Mordechai see that he provoked Haman? The answer is Al Kocha, and the answer is going to be for the following reason. What's the reason? The Shavinav Sheva Zara, which is interesting because you don't see that in the Megillah. Megillah doesn't say that, but he didn't bow down, and the reason is because Haman made himself into Avodah Zarah. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says that even though a person, you're allowed to bow down to a person out of respect, but you're not allowed to bow down to him if he makes himself into an Avodah Zarah. So Haman did. Haman made himself into an Avodah Zarah, and therefore Mordechai didn't bow down, which is part of the mystery of the Megillah. It doesn't say why did Mordechai not bow down. Yet the Gemara tells us because Haman made himself into an Avodah Zarah. And what happened as a result? This Rachash Nisa, that a miracle happened. That's how it happened in order to save Mordechai and of course all the Jews. That the miracle happened of the story, that how it evolved. That he's supposed to talk about the story of Haman's greatness. The issue would be, what was Haman jealous of, and he started coming against all of the Jews? And the answer is because Mordechai didn't want to kneel and bow. What happened as a result? That they hung him and his children on the gallows, on the wood. So, and there's one more opinion, and that was Rabbi Shimon. This Rachash Nisa.
Excuse me.
Yes, please.
Hitrachev, what is the definition of
It needs to
hitrachev?
happen. It needs to happen, occur. So what did Achashverosh see to bring the Chronicles? The answer is because he saw that Esther invited Haman, and that was very bothersome. Like I said before, he was thinking maybe they're scheming against me. And then he started thinking maybe then someone would have told me. And then he said maybe not, because people do me favors and I don't pay them back. So let's read the Chronicles in order to see. And what happened as a result? This Rachash said the miracle of Purim happened. So those are the four opinions with a psukim, two psukim, and the four opinions are from the beginning, from Mordechai, from Muhammad, or from the miracle. We paskin have to read the whole thing, and that's everybody knows. You have to hear the whole megillah. Even the opinions that say later, either from Mordechai, the rest, all the other opinions, but everybody else, you have to have the whole megillah written. It's just not how much you have to read, but how much you have to be written, how much has to be written in front of you. Everybody else have to have the whole megillah says. The Gemara goes to continue another statement of this Amora. It isn't only a bonus because it also has to do with Hilchos Megillah, but the Chorah comes in over here because he just mentioned Amar of Chelbo, Amar of Chama of Goy, Amar Rav. What does he say? Megillah's Nikra Sefer, the Nikra Sigeris. We find psukim where the Megillah Esther is referred to as a Sefer. Rashi says V'nichtav Sefer or Yigeris Apurim Azos. It could be that the Pashup Pshat in the Megillah Yigeris Apurim is not dafka about the Megillah Esther. It's talking about the letters that they sent out. But the Gemara is dashing as far as the Megillah Esther, and a Sefer means a scroll. Yigeris means a letter, and a Yigeris means not an unofficial thing. No halachas about a Sefer. It sounds like an official document that scroll that. We know there's halachas about a sefer, like a sefer Torah, a sefer Nevi'im, a sefer Ksubim. So it's on one hand it's called a sefer that has an official halachas. The other one is the Igeris, which is considered a regular letter. So Nikra Sefer, Shem Tofar B'chut Pishtim Psula. The Nikra Igeris, She'im Hitel Bashlosh Shechut Egidim Ksheira. So we know that a sefer has to be sewn. Whenever you have to sew it, if you have two ureas, you have to sew it together. It has to be sewn together with gidim, with veins, they call it, sinews, and that you can't use other things. You can't use other thread in order to sew it. And we had the earlier we learned that in the Gemara. It said Ein Bein from the Tefillin Mezuzos, only some differences, but the Gemara says as far as sewing it begidin, they're all the same. So here Megillah says there would have to be like a sefer that it's sewn with gidin, not with a regular thread. But on the other hand, it is called an igeris. When you have an igeris, you can sew it with anything. So that's coming to say some kind of a leniency. The crazy that as long as you had three sets of gidin, even though the rest of it is sewn with pishton, it is good. So it's more lenient. The regular sefer has to have everything gidin. You can't have any pishton at all. But over here, as long as you had a minimum, which is three, so then you could have the rest of it sewn with pishton, and that's the halacha. But those three can't just be three stitches any place. It has to be divided equally. So it'll be toward the top one, the bottom one, the middle one. Then if they're divided equally, so then the rest of them could be also pishton. I'm a view the new halacha now. We finish that, now goes a new halacha. I'm a view the much more. One line up. So you can't be Yotze if you have a Megillah Esther written amongst other ksuvim. Now in the shuls where they have a cloth, so you have you can have a whole. They do have each scroll they write separately. You have Yeshaya, Yirmiyah, Yecheskel, each one is separate. But you could have everything in one scroll. You could have all the ksuvim if you want, and you can have 5 megillas. So they don't usually have it nowadays. They don't do it nowadays. They make each scroll separately. They make Shirim, they make Eicha. They don't put it together. I don't.
One of them together one time.
I'd be surprised. You have Treyasa together. I'd be surprised that they have together. I'd be surprised. But really, you could have. You could have a whole scroll of Ksuvim, all the Nevi'im together. You can make one big fat scroll of Yeshua, Shoftim, Shmuel. You could do that. Here it says that you wouldn't be Yotze the Megillah Esther, even though it's a kosher scroll. It's interesting. We had before maybe have a non-kosher scroll, and you could be Yotze the Megillah. Here is a case of having a kosher scroll and you're not Yotze. It has to be separate by itself. It has to be Omei Latzmo in order that it should be Nikir. Rashi says Persuma Nisa. So it says Akorba Megillah Ksuvim and Ksuvim Layasa. If someone would have read the Megillah Esther from Megillah Esther, which is part of the text of the regular scroll. It has everything over there. Not good enough. It has to be Nikra Pesumi Nisa. But that's only if it doesn't, it's not different, which means that if it would be less or more, let's say the parchment is all 30 centimeters, and the one of Megillah says he made 35 centimeters or 25 centimeters, so it's different. So that's good enough. It shows that it's something special. But if it would be the same, it's only a problem if it's all the same size. But if it's less or more, then it's kosher. Later, there was somebody who was reading the Megillah before of Yehuda in a scroll of the regular scroll of all the ksubim. It wasn't a Megillah by itself. So I told him it's not good. So what are you doing? So the Gemara says, some words are missing over here in the Gersos, but he meant to tell him that somebody says that is good, like we just said. Not as we just said, a new point. But the word mocha sounds like they hit it on the head. And he said it means that he retracted somewhat, or he made a limitation. That also should be maybe highlighted. That it's only a problem if it's reading in the tzibur. When you're reading in the tzibur, then it has to be a Megillah by itself or Mechasar or Miyatra, and you have a regular Megillah Sester as part of the whole Ksuvim book. So the Ksuvim scroll, that's not good, but only b'tzibur. But if you're reading by yourself, and that's the case over here, that he was reading by himself, he was reading in front of an individual. This story that happened by Rav Yehuda. What did it say before? Levi Bar Shmuel was reading before Rav Yehuda, not in the shul. He was reading only as an individual. So then you don't have to have, then you could read a Megillah that's part of the whole Ksuvim. Again, nowadays, I don't think they do that. I don't think they have it. I don't think that they print that they write it like that. But if you have such a kind of a Megillah Esther, part of other Megillahs, other Ksuvim, it will be kosher if you're reading for yourself. If you're reading in the Tzibur, even though it's kosher, but you're not using the Megillah Esther. And also, the Gemara said before that there's an eitzah to make it shorter or longer, then also it will be kosher. Just to point out a nice thing that the post can bring a raya from here. Taisa brings a raya. The Peg brings down that if it says here that there's sometimes reading the Megillah b'tzibur and sometimes reading it b'yachid. We had a machlokes towards the beginning of the Masechta that maybe you have to read it with 10 people, even bismano. Everybody holds a read it shelo bismano that you have to read it with 10 people. But if you're reading it bismano on the right day, there's machlokes. But this Gemara says farish that such a thing as having a yachid. You don't always have to have a tzibur. They bring a raya from here. The way paskin that yachid bismano could also be yosed in Megillah Esther. That's how we paskin. The Gemara says over there, Rab himself was who holds like that, but he was machmir l'chatchila. If you could get a minyan, but if not, so you read the Megillah less than a minyan and with a bracha also. This happens sometimes when people read the Megillah for the women. They don't have 10 people. They read it at home. So l'chatchila, the women should also go to the shul to have 10 people. They say maybe 10 women are also good enough. But if not, we paskin that even b'yachid also you can read the Megillah bismano. When it comes out lo bismano, when it comes out, let's say the Purim Mishulish, 15th comes out on Shabbos, they read the Megillah earlier, then you'd have to have a tzibur. Then you shouldn't read less than 10 people. But if
if a guy leans for 10 women, does he make a bracha?
so, they say that women is also good enough. It doesn't have to be a minion of men. Here the point is only for so many. So then yes. But if it would be less than 10 people, which sometimes 10 people we read for the women that don't have 10 people, so then we passing say bracha also. But if we reach a lo bismano, so then not. The Gemara continues. Ama Rabbi Chia Bar Rabbi Yochanan Shio Tefer. I'm sorry. Okay, so yeah, that'll be one case. And nowadays it doesn't happen. Nowadays it happens when it comes out Tezvav on Shabbos that we read on Yudal. That's also called Shelo Bismano. The poskim seem to say. This seems to come because of the name. We had before Rabbi Yochanan. It comes in another. This is not relevant to us. This is a side issue. It should have been maybe not African yellow because we do side issues in green. But this also is negate to Megillah Esther. That means when you sew the Megillah or any Sefer Torah, so you have to make the stitches when you're connecting the urios. So Shir Tefer, you're supposed to leave something over. That means you're not supposed to make the stitch all the way at the edges. You're supposed to leave a bit and then make the stitch. You have to leave the edge unstitched. So first he said Allah Moshe Messinai, that it's no reason that we know Hashem said so. Like it's given without knowing a reason. But then Mochala Mocha, then he retracted. Again, the same lesson as before, Mochala Mocha, that's also a reason why it comes in before. Mochala Mocha, that they hit it on the head, that means that they retracted. Here's more of a retraction. Lo Amru Elak Desh Lo Yikra. It's not Lachem Moshe Messinai. before we said he just made a limitation, the tzibur shana, but here he's retracting altogether, and the reason is that it shouldn't tear. Why does it cause that it shouldn't tear? So Rashi says because when it starts pulling, if for some reason it gets pulling, so if the stitch goes till the end, so then it'll tear. But if it has some space, so it gives a little bit, and the person will realize also that they shouldn't pull it anymore. He'll stop. He won't do it anymore. Someone told me another pshat besides Rashi that if there's a space, so if it's going to tear, that's where it's going to tear. It'll tear on the seam, on the stitches. Mashenkin, if it goes till the end, so then the pressure is all equally, it'll tear on the cloth just as much as on the stitch. So this is safer that it shouldn't do it tear. Also, agav, not this halacha that it says over here, but that's the point. That's a little similar halacha when you do glila. Whoever does hagba glila, so when you roll it up, it's supposed to be mamidu ala tefer. It's supposed to be on the stitching, on the seam. Again, that it shouldn't tear. So you have to be careful when you do that. Also, when you do hagba and when you do glila, that the stitching should be in front of you. Don't just do hagba glila with regular parchment showing. It should be the stitching. When you close it up, the one does glila should know that it should roll it up to the place where the stitching is. But now it doesn't say here. Here, this talks about leaving a little space between the edge of the cloth and the stitch. There should be a space. Now, because of Rabbi Yochanan, which we had two already, we get some extra credit. We're going on a bonus. We're going on a cruise. It says, that over there it says that Hashem told Moshe to be in the Nikras Atzur, the crack in the boulder, and that's when Moshe was when Hashem passed. It says, so it says that Sakosi Eskapi, I'm going to cover you up. So it says if there would have been even an eye of a needle, nekev makat sitkas, even the hole of a sewing needle, then the hoyachol and lam they wouldn't be able to withstand the light, whatever that means. The ashpah that Hashem is coming when the Shekhinah was there, so Moshe wouldn't be able to tolerate such a great kedusha like Rani Adam B'choy, but Hashem covered it up. So that man cannot see me and live. He can't tolerate a man in the guf. Cannot tolerate such a great holiness of the Shekhinah. So Hashem covered it up, and if he wouldn't have covered completely, there would have been even a drop that was not covered. They wouldn't have been able to withstand it. Also, Elio. So that's interesting that it talks about Elio being in the cave. It does say Elio went and ran away and he was in the cave, but it is interesting. It's a kasha over here because over there it says that Hashem told him, "Say v'amarata b'hor, go outside." And then the Shekhinah passed by and said, "Called the Mamadaka," and that was the Shekhinah. So it seems to say the Pashup Pshat that Eliyahu was out of the cave when the Shekhinah passed by. That seems to be against Al Gemara. Al Gemara says that he was also covered up within the cave. So I don't know how to answer that. And another bonus. Yes, Har Chorev, yeah, same cave. And Har Sinai. It says Har Chorev, yeah. But when he says, when the Shekhinah passed by, he says, "Say v'amarata b'hor." Rashi quotes the pasuk even. Where's the pasuk? Say v'amarata b'hor. And then it says Hashem Ober. So when the Shekhinah passed by, so then he was outside. So what is it talking about that it was covered up completely? It says he was outside the cave.
Was it a visionary experience for the Navi?
I don't think so. I mean, definitely there was a vision. There definitely was so I don't think it means that he saw. It could be hearing voice, like it says, you hear a voice, but it could be also seeing a fire is also not the Shekhinah. There's a representation, like they always saw a cloud and a fire. But surely it was a perception. He had a great perception. Asad and Hashem. That's what it means when you have a nevuah. But it said he had to be covered up. That's what it says, that it has to be covered up. And by Elio, it also says that, but I don't understand because the pasuk says openly that he went outside. So I'll leave that as a question. If anybody has an answer, I appreciate it. Next Gemara, another bonus.
Maris Eliyahu in Haifa, where the Bia Baal were.
That's something else. That's what, yeah.
That's not where Elio was when the Shekhinah passed by. It says over there he went to Har Chorev. It says, I think,
Yeah, that's where he sat and learned. It wasn't even where he could follow me and killed him elsewhere.
Another bonus. My Dachsiv.
I don't want to get time, but
I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about the Gemara in Haifa. I do not know.
No. Why did he sit like I see my?
No, it says he ran away. He was running away. That's what it says in the pasuk over there. And he ran. The Malach came, gave him food, and he ran for 40 days to run away.
No, but we said the kedusha from Har Sinai left after.
So now it came again. When the Shekhinah passed by for Elio.
Why did he go back there to learn?
Hashem, I don't think it doesn't say to learn. It says he ran away, and Hashem told him to go there. It doesn't say about learning over there. The Pasuk means upon the Luchos was all the words that Hashem has spoken to you on the mountain, which Pashma means Aseret Dibros. But the Gemara is mentioning more than that, not about what it says on the Luchos. Malami Shavua Kodesh Baruch Moshe Tiktukei Torah, Tiktukei Sofrim, Umasha Sofrim Asidim L'Chadesh. Not only what it says openly in the Torah, but also all of the Tiktukim, Tiktukei Torah, Tiktukei Sofrim. Rashi over here says, what does it mean Tiktukei Torah? What does it mean Tiktukei Sofrim? Rashi says, all the Tiktukim, Tiktukei Torah, Ribuyin, Es and Gamen, when it says Es or when it says Gam, some kind of a something to include more, or Amiyat if it says Ach or Rak, that's called Tiktukim, not only the actual words, but all but that's what Rashi over here learns Tiktukei Sofrim. So Hashem told Moshe everything. And also the last thing, Masha Hasofrim Asidim L'Chadesh. Whatever the Rabbanan are going to what's the word? Invent, L'Chadesh, to innovate, initiate. And what's that? Mikra Megillah. Mikra Megillah is the one innovation of Chazal. The Gemara says the same thing earlier, that there were 48, we had a few daf ago, there were 48 prophets and 7 prophetesses, and they didn't change anything except Mikra Megillah. So of course Mikra Megillah is Rabbanan, and maybe it's this unique in the fact that it's not a takana, it's not a fence around the Raisa, it's a new takana. Rashi over there asked the kasha about Hanukkah, and here his answer doesn't apply. How come only Mikra Megillah? How about Hanukkah? So I don't know. But maybe this has to do with the Sofrim, Masha Sofrim, maybe something to do about a text. So Mikra Megillah is the new text that they made. That doesn't mean, of course, that there's a Sefer Yeshaya, Yirmiyah, there are texts also, but the mitzvah to read the Mikra Megillah, that was the Chiddush that is considered Masha Sofrim and the Chadash, that also Moshe Rabbeinu knew about. Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu about that also. The next Mishnah. Hakol Kshem Likus Megillah. Chutz Mecher Shot of a Katan, Aviu the Masha Bekatan. This also should have been okay, that also should have been highlighted. I forgot about the katan over there. So everyone created Megillah. Anybody's kosher, any man, and any women also. Doesn't say women are not kosher. Happens to be places before that spoke about that maybe a woman's only kosher to read the Megillah for women, and maybe not for men. Even though the chayiv in Megillah, but maybe there's difference between men and women. But we're not going into that now. That's a places before. But here it says that everyone's kosher except for a cheresh, shota v'katan. And everybody knows in the whole Torah, in the whole Shas, it says kosher shota v'katan. It always means someone who's deaf mute and shota retarded, whatever level of retardation that's going to be, and a minor. They're not considered b'nei das, and therefore they're not chayiv in mitzvahs. And that's always cheresh shota v'katan is always goes. But here, obviously, it doesn't mean that, because this cheresh says you can't be yotze the Megillah from a cheresh shota v'katan. So the cheresh is speaking. He's reading the Megillah. So he's not deaf mute. He's only deaf, but he's not mute, because or else he wouldn't be able to read the Megillah. So this cheresh is different than all the chereshim. A regular in all Torah, when a person could speak, even if he cannot hear, he's only deaf. He's considered a regular chayiv. He's chayiv in all the mitzvahs. And here the Mishnah puts it together that there's a cheresh shota v'katan. It seems like it's like a shota v'katan. He doesn't have. It's possible. But that's the big problem. The whole Gemara is going to talk about that. He's not like a shota v'katan. He has das. A cheresh who's deaf and mute. He's the one who's considered not a bar das, but someone who could speak is considered a bar das. So why can't he read the Megillah? That's a big problem. That's going to be the whole Gemara. Also the issue about a katan, that's another issue, that a minor kosher to read. So it's very interesting. We don't have a katan reading, but the truth is that a katan can read the Torah. Katan can read the Torah. So Mishnah Megillah later on that a katan is allowed to read. If you go to some minyanim, Taimani, Yemenites, they'll have katan reading. They read them. They read the Torah. They give aliyahs and they read themselves.
At the kotel, sometimes if you have a balkar, it doesn't really know how to get a cup and the nose better than average.
I don't know. The minig is not to only maftim. But really, halachically, the katan is allowed to read. I don't know the answer to that question. What do you do? What? So you must say that Kriyas Torah is different. Kriyas Torah is everybody's learning. Everybody's learning, and somebody's reading it. Then everybody should learn that when you have a public reading. That's called everybody's learning. But Kriyas Megillah is a mitzvah, Megillah, and he being motzi. So it's different than a regular Kriyas Torah. And the question is, could a katan be motzi? And here it says, katan may not be motzi to Mikra Megillah. He holds yes, it is kosher. The Gemara is not only be the Eved. So it comes very extreme. According to Tanakama, a katan is not kosher even with the Eved. He's not motzi to Megillah. And Abuda says he's kosher even the Chatchila. And interestingly enough, it's going to be what is supposed to be like. Some say that a katan could read, but the three shota is nothing to talk about. The shota is not about that. And everybody holds that he can't do it. But the two issues we have to talk about is a katan, which the Gemara is not going to talk about too much, but we'll talk about that as far as the halacha goes. Here it says that Tanakama says a katan is not good, even with the Eved, and Abu holds that a katan is good, even the chatchila. And what the Gemara is going to talk about at length is the cheresh. This cheresh who can speak, why can he not be motzi in megillah? That's where the Gemara starts. So just to give an introduction, to make it much easier, I think. The Gemara might be a little bit back and forth, but to just make it easy. We had it in Maseches Brachas. If you say a bracha or Kriya Shema and you didn't hear what you said, if you said the words but you didn't hear it, Kriya Shema, you said it but you didn't hear it. So over there we came out that there are three opinions. Some say even l'chatchila is good. Some say even the it's not good, and some say l'chatchila you should hear, but the yotzei. As long as you said it. If you didn't say it at all, you just thought about it, surely not yotzei. But if you said it, but you didn't hear it, you articulated it, but you didn't hear it. So this is machlokes if it's even yotzei l'chatchila or not even yotzei b'diavad, the two extremes. And there's a middle opinion that l'chatchila you should hear, but b'diavad yotzei. The Gemara is going to discuss these three opinions over here, and we're going to put it into our Mishnah. The Gemara is going to talk about that the issue of a cheresh. Because this person over here that is a cheresh, he's saying the megillah, so he's not mute. He's just deaf, but he doesn't hear the megillah. So the Gemara looks at him like a person who said it and did not hear it. Is a yotzei. If you hold you're not yotzei, then he can't be motzi. And that's one way to learn the Mishnah. That's a simple way to learn the Mishnah. That cheresh, even though he could speak and everybody else hears him, but he's not yotzei himself because he can't hear it. Why is he not yotzei? Because he didn't hear it. Nothing special about it. Not because it's not a bardas. He is a bardas, but he didn't hear. If you hold that when you say something and you don't hear, you're not yotzei. So this cheresh was not yotzei in Megillah, and therefore he can't be motzi others.
That would be the same thing with the shofar.
The what?
A person can blow a shofar, but he can't hear it himself. So what's the story?
Moshe is saying that someone who's deaf, he's to be the same thing as over here. That over there, there's no mitzvah to blow the shofar. There's no mitzvah to blow the shofar. The mitzvah l'chora is to hear the shofar. Maybe it's a question about that. But the way we say l'shma kol shofar, there's no mitzvah to blow. The mitzvah is to hear. So if he doesn't hear, so he's parted from shofar. It might not even be relevant to our here. So here, there might be a mitzvah to read it, and after you read, there's a mitzvah to read, Amikra Megillah, but you have to hear what you're saying. And here is the Gembi and Machlokis. If he said it and he didn't hear it, but by blowing the shofar without hearing it, could be everybody else that you're not yotzei. Very interesting. Thank you. I didn't think about that. So that's what the Gemara is going to say. In short, the Gemara is going to say that this issue of a cheresh, this deaf person who could speak, it's not the regular cheresh of a katan. He's a person who could speak, but he couldn't hear. And someone who says a bracha like that, Megillah, Kriya Shema, is a yotzei. If you hold he's yotzei, so there's no reason why he shouldn't be able to be motzi other people. If you hold he's not yotzei, that's why he can't be motzi other people. If it's l'chatchila not b'diavad, then l'chatchila he shouldn't be motzi b'diavad, he could be motzi. That's what the Gemara is going to say. The whole issue, that's going to be the truth. How the Gemara comes out, that it depends on this machlokis, and the Gemara is going to say which pshat fits into the Mishnah. Is our Mishnah saying that it's not good even b'diavad because if you speak and you don't hear, you're not yotzei even b'diavad, or the Mishnah is saying that l'chatchila you shouldn't read because l'chatchila you should hear it, but b'diavad he's yotzei, and b'diavad the people could be yotzei from him. Obviously, our Mishnah doesn't hold that even the l'chatchila you don't have to hear because the Mishnah says the cheresh is not good, either not good l'chatchila, not good b'diavad. But according to the opinion that says that you could be yotzei if you say something without hearing it, it's good even l'chatchila. Let's say Kriya Shema, then he would say that cheresh is good even l'chatchila because he speaks. And even though he didn't hear it, even the l'chatchila, that's fine. And so too, the people that are hearing from him. So this issue, the Gemara seems to say, I'm saying the Pashto on the Mishnah and the Gemara. Maybe there are those that have more depth than the Gemara, but the simple Pashto seems to say that it depends on the same machlokus we had about hearing Kriya Shema, that he said it and you didn't hear it. No difference if you're deaf or you have earplugs and you didn't hear it. So are you yotzei? Some say l'chatchila is good. Some say only b'diavad is good. Some say even b'diavad is not good. And the same issue is going to be over here by Mikra Megillah. A person who's deaf, he can't hear. It's like he has earplugs, and either it's going to be that lachatchila is fine, both for him and for others, or only with the evidence is fine, both for him and for others, or even with the evidence not fine, even for him and for others. And we'll get to the psak at the end of the segment. The Gemara doesn't talk about the psak, but we'll talk about it if I remember. So the Gemara wants to know that it seems to say in our Mishnah that the cheresh is not good even with the evidence. That's what it says. Cheresh shota v'katan shota is not good even with the evidence. So it must mean that even a cheresh is not good even with the evidence. Who's that? Mantan cheresh je'eved namilo. Who holds that a cheresh is not kosher to read the megillah even with the evidence since he didn't hear himself? Not because he's a cheresh that he's no das. He has das. He's able to talk. But since he didn't hear himself, he's not Yosef even with the Evid, and therefore he can't be Motzi even with the Evid. Who's that? I'm Rabbi Tana, Rabbi Yossi. That would be according to Rabbi Yossi in Maseches Brachas. The Tanan, Hakar Shema v'lo Shmiel Ozno, Yotza. Rabbi Yossi v'lo Yotza. Rabbi Yossi also, if you said Kriya Shema, you didn't hear what you said, you're not Yotze. That's very good in our Mishnah that he's not Yotze even with the Evid, and that's why he can't be Motzi. But the Gemara says that now the Gemara is going to go on to try to fit the Mishnah into other opinion. There's an opinion that says with the Evid you are Yotze, Rabbi Yehuda. And maybe our Mishnah, we could squeeze in that when our Mishnah says that a cheresh is not good, it only means lachatchila it's not good. Maybe with the evidence it is good. The Gemara is not questioning their opinions. The opinions are there, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. But the question is, how does our Mishnah read? When our Mishnah says that a cheresh is not good, does it mean with the evidence not good? Or it means only lachatchila is not good? That's what the Gemara is going to try to say now. And the Gemara is going to say that it could come out. You could read the Mishnah that only lachatchila is not good, but the evidence is good, and that goes according to Rabbi Yehuda. Who's told you that the Mishnah means that even with the Evid, he's not Yotzei if he doesn't hear? Maybe this means lachatchila it's not good, but with the Evid it is good. So first the Gemara jumps up right away. Of course not. Don't think about that. Look at the Mishnah. It says everyone's kosher except for maybe I should get everything rid of over here because it's a little bit disturbing to see all of this. Okay, we're just left with what we need. So the Mishnah says cheresh shota v'katan is not good. It seems to be a group that they're all the same. Shota v'katan is not good even with the Evid. So when it says cheresh also is not good even with the Evid. So how do you want to say that it goes according to Rabbi Yehuda? Just like a shota v'katan is not good even with the Evid, so too a cheresh. It must be Rabbi Yossi talking. But the one is not impressed with that kasha. But they'll mark kadisa. That's not such a problem. That you could say that cheresh shota v'katan are all not good. Some are not good lachatchila, some are not good even with the Evid. Shota v'katan is not good even with the Evid. Cheresh maybe is good with the Evid. Maybe it could be Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara is not a problem. How can he say it's Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yehuda machshir b'katan v'chal deveish la Rabbi Yehuda. If you look at the Sefer, it said Rabbi Yehuda machshir b'katan. I'm sorry, I missed that. Rabbi Yehuda machshir b'katan. So till now, Rabbi Yehuda was not talking because Tanakama said that a katan is not good. Rabbi Yehuda says a katan is good. So you see that the author of the beginning of the Mishnah is not Rabbi Yehuda. So now, as far as the cheresh goes, it's true. Rabbi Yehuda would hold that a cheresh is good with the Evid, only not good lachatchila. But you can't stick him into the Reish and the Mishnah because he's not the author. You see, he didn't speak up until the Sefer, Rabbi Yehuda machshir b'katan. So that's the reason why it can't be Rabbi Yehuda. Militani Sefer. Rabbi
Rebbe,
yes,
why
please.
can't Yehuda just be arguing about the katan? He agrees with the Tanakama for the first two, and he disagrees with the katan.
No, the Gemara knows from other places that Rabbi Yehuda would hold that the cheresh is good with the Evid because Rabbi Yehuda holds that if you say Kriya Shema and you did not hear yourself, you are Yotzei with the Evid. So the Gemara doesn't see a reason why Rabbi Yehuda should hold that the cheresh cannot read the Megillah. He read it and he's a bar das and he didn't hear it. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda holds that the Evid shouldn't hear it. The Gemara knows that according to Rabbi Yehuda, the cheresh is Yotzei and Motzi with the Evid. The Gemara just wants to know, could we say that the author of the Mishnah of the Tanakama is Rabbi Yehuda? We know what he holds. We want to know if we can stick it into our Mishnah. So
I see. Can't say that he's the author of the
right.
Reish.
You can't say he's the author because he's talking in the Sefer. He's not the author of the Reish. By Katan. So too, he's not the author of the Mishnah in the beginning by Cheresh. He's not the one who's talking. And so therefore you can't stick into the Mishnah that Rabbi Yehuda holds the Cheresh is not good only lachatchila because he's not talking. And those who argue on him hold that a Cheresh is not even good with the Evid. That's going to be Rabbi Yossi. That holds even the evidence not good. That's the Gemara. Militani Sefer Rabbi Yehuda machshir b'katan v'chal deveish la Rabbi Yehuda. How could he say that the author is Rabbi Yehuda? He's talking in the Sefer. He wasn't talking in the Reisha. But the Gemara again is not impressed with this kasha. The Dilma Kul Rabbi Yehuda, and the Gemara is going to do surgery now. Usually the Gemara doesn't do this to make surgery to say a pshat. You can, only if you have to. But here the Gemara is a simple pshat. The Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi that a cheresh is not good even with the Evid. The Gemara is going to do surgery on the Mishnah in order to get Rabbi Yehuda to be the author of the beginning of the Mishnah even though he seems to be arguing, if Yehuda argues on the Tanakama, the Gemara is going to say, you read it all wrong, and it's one big Mishnah, Yehuda is the author, and we'll figure it out. The Gemara is going to say that there is a katan that's Yehuda also holds is not good. And there's a katan that holds is good. The Gemara is going to say if he's below educational age, low gil chinuch, that's the katan that's not good. But if he's a gil chinuch, then he is good. And the whole mission is Yehuda talking, and cheresh also means that the evidence only the chatchila is not good, but the evidence is good. The mission is going to be very interesting. It's going to say cheresh is not good lachatchila, shot is not good, but the evid katan. If he's not a gil chinuch, he's pasul. If he's a gil chinuch, then he's kosher even lachatchila. That's how the mission is going to read according to the surgery that the Gemara is doing. Taisus is bothered. How come the Gemara does such a surgery over here? Taisus says because we pass like Rabbi Yehuda, so we're trying to stick in the Mishnah should read according to Rabbi Yehuda, even though it's quite a doche. So here's where the Gemara goes. The Dilma, top line on the screen. The Dilma, cool Rabbi Yehuda. We could say the Mishnah is all Rabbi Yehuda. There's not Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda. Everything is Rabbi Yehuda talking. There are two kinds of ketanim. One is going to be a gil chinuch, one is going to be a gil chinuch. In order to do that, you have to say some words are missing in the Mishnah. It should be like this. So far, the words are good, that everyone can read the Megillah, l'chatchila, except for Cheresh V'Katan. Cheresh, we're going to say now, is not good l'chatchila, but the Eved is good. Hashot is not good with the Eved, and a Katan is not good with the Eved. The medva mamur b'katan shlo gil chinuch is only if he's below the age of chinuch. Avakatan gil chinuch afilu lachatchila. If he's of educational age, then even lachatchila he could read. Who's that? Rabbi Yehuda. Shav Yehuda machshe b'katan. So the Gemara did surgery to get that Rabbi Yehuda is the only Tan of the Mishnah. There is no machlokus as far as katan. He himself is discerning between a katan shegil chinuch or not. That a katan that's low gil chinuch is possible. A katan shegil chinuch is kosher. But he's the only author. If he's the only author, we could say that the cheresh that it says is not good is only not good to chatchila, but the evidence is good. That's really the end of the Gemara. Really, that's the end of the Gemara, and it comes out there are two opinions. Rabbi Yossi holds that even the evidence is not good. A cheresh, even though he's talking, but since he can't hear what he's saying, even the evidence is not yotzei, and therefore he's not motzi. And Rabbi Yehuda would hold that lachatchila is not yotzei and motzei. But the Eved, he is Yotzei and Motzi. That's the end of the Gemara. The rest of the Gemara is going to be a copy of the Sugya and Brachas. Is that true that Rabbi Yehuda holds? This is like, we call it prehistoric. This is just to get into the basics. Is it true what we're assuming the whole time that Rabbi Yehuda holds that L'chatchila he has to hear, but the Eved doesn't have to hear? That we took as a given till now. Rabbi Yossi surely holds even the Eved. You have to hear. And the Gemara assumed till now that Rabbi Yehuda holds the chatchila you have to hear, but the Eved you don't have to hear. And that's how we paskin. But the Gemara now is going to analyze, is that true? And the whole sugya is also on brachas, kemat, as they call hatei hatbeik, that it's the copy sugya of the Gemara and brachas. And the Gemara starts over here, b'mayu kimta. Where is that? B'mayu kimta. B'mayu kimta Rabbi Yehuda. The Mishnah, this is a little tricky. B'mayu kimta, how did you establish the Mishnah in brachas? The Mishnah in brachas that talks about that the lachatchila you have to hear kar v'lo shmiya lo ozno yatsa is Rabbi Yehuda. Udi Eved that the Eved yotze. The Gemara is questioning that there's a shita that says that even lachatchila you don't have to hear. Isn't that Rabbi Yehuda? Elad the Tanya Rabbi Yehuda may read Rav Shimon ben Pazi. Cheresh tamadam b'veinu shemei atom lachatchila. This is talking about taking off truma. And the question is, if he's a cheresh hamadam b'veinu shemei, that's also again. He could talk. He's not mute. He's only deaf. He's deaf, not mute. Could he take off truma? There's no reason why he shouldn't take off truma. Why not? But the only issue is a bracha. That if he's going to take off the truma, he's not saying a bracha. So is that a problem? Is it a problem to say bracha without hearing? So it says over there, no problem. No problem. That means that saying a bracha without hearing is lachatchila good. Even lachatchila, you don't have to hear what you're saying. So who's that? If you're assuming that there are two opinions of Yehuda and Yossi, one says b'diavad is not good, one says b'diavad is good, but no one says lachatchila is good. And you have a brisa that says tom lachatchila. That's no problem. Even lachatchila, you don't have to hear the bracha. Mani, who's the author of this brisa? Yehuda, diavad in lachatchila lo. He's saying that only the Eved is going to come to Yehuda. So it's not like this Rabbi Yehuda break Rav Shimon ben Pazi. Rabbi Yossi, diavad nami lo. You're not Yossi the bracha at all. So we want to push that maybe Rabbi Yehuda doesn't know. There's no such opinion. No one holds that Lachatchila you have to hear, but the Evid you have to hear, and that's going to be Pshar on our Mishnah by the Cheresh. No, Rabbi Yehuda holds even Lachatchila is good. It must be our Mishnah of Yossi that even the Evid is not good. But the Gemara is going to counter with another brisa. You brought a brisa that there's somebody, Rabbi Yehuda Beit Rav Shimon ben Pazi, that holds Lachatchila you have to hear, but the Evid you don't have to. But there's another brisa that says, I'm sorry, they just brought that even that Talmud Lachatchila, even the Evid, even Lachatchila you don't have to hear. But the Gemara says, I have a counter brisa that does say what we're looking for, that Lachatchila you have to hear, but the Evid you don't have to. There's a brisa that says Lachatchila you have to hear what you're saying. The word belibo means saying it in your heart. It doesn't mean literally thinking about it only, or just saying it mentally. It means that you said it with your mouth, but you didn't hear it. That's called belibo. A little dochak, but that's what it seems to mean. But it says Lachatchila, don't say it only if you hear it. But if you said it without hearing it, you're still yotze b'di'evet. So there is such an opinion that says that there's a difference between Lachatchila and b'di'evet. You must hear it Lachatchila, b'di'evet you don't have to. But you want to say that there's no such opinion. You want to say that even Lachatchila you don't have to hear it, or even b'di'evet you do have to hear it. The Gemara at this point was saying the two extremes. Either Rabbi Yossi holds b'di'evet it's not good if you didn't hear, and Rabbi Yehuda even Lachatchila you don't have to hear. So who's this opinion in the middle? Imani, Rabbi Yehuda v'lo Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yehuda Lachatchila you don't have to hear. Rabbi Yossi feel with b'di'evet namilo even b'di'evet you do have to hear. So there is such an opinion that says so really we found all the opinions already. We found Lachatchila, we found that b'di'evet. We found even Lachatchila is good. We found Lachatchila is not good, b'di'evet it is good, and we found that b'di'evet is not good. Now we're trying to fit in the names now. The Gemara says on the top, the next page, if we can go a little bit further, we can say Rabbi Yehuda holds that even Lachatchila you don't have to hear. And the brisa here is that says that Lachatchila you do have to hear is going to be somebody else. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Mishum of Elazar ben Azariah, Akar Shema Asar Sheshmi Elazno Shenema Shema Yisrael. So Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. So this is Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rabbi Yehuda, in the name of his Rebbe, said that Lachatchila you must hear Shema Yisrael. It says Sorach, which means you have to, but you don't. That doesn't mean b'di'evet. B'di'evet the Yosei. But he says you're supposed to hear. There's another opinion of Meir Omar. Shenech Mesav Chayam Alav Avecha. Alav Avecha means it should be on your heart as long as you have it in your heart, which means that you said it even if you didn't hear it. So the Gemara found there's two opinions. The Gemara at this point is not concentrating on Rabbi Meir, but it's concentrating on Rabbi Yehuda, that he himself would hold that you don't have to hear it even Lachatchila. And in the name of his Rebbe, there's an opinion that says that Lachatchila you do have to hear it. But Rabbi Yehuda himself holds that Lachatchila you don't have to hear what you're saying. And then the Gemara says, we all found Rabbi Meir now. We weren't looking for him, but we found Rabbi Meir that maybe Rabbi Yehuda himself holds Lachatchila you have to hear, but you don't have to. There is an opinion. Rabbi Meir says Lachatchila you don't have to hear. That could be like these two opinions are the same. They hold that Lachatchila you don't have to hear what you're saying. Rabbi Yehuda and his Rebbe, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, hold Lachatchila you do have to hear. And Rabbi Yossi holds even b'di'evet you have to hear. And end of the sugya. Just to wrap it up, the Gemara spoke about three opinions. When you say Kriya Shema, Berachas Hamaz, and other things, it seems to say at least Kriya Shema. There are three opinions. The most extreme is Rabbi Yossi. Even b'di'evet, if you didn't hear, you're not Yossi. The next opinion is Rabbi Yehuda, and maybe the name of his Rebbe, maybe he himself holds like that also. Lachatchila you do have to hear what you say, and b'di'evet not. And the third opinion is going to be Rabbi Meir that says even Lachatchila you don't have to hear what you say. Our Mishnah, the Gemara said two possibilities. You could fit in our Mishnah either Rabbi Yossi or Rabbi Yehuda. If you say the simple words in our Mishnah, it's Rabbi Yossi, that a Chesed, a Bekat, and a Cheresh, even though he's talking, since he can't hear, even b'di'evet he's not Yosei, and therefore can't be Motzi. Or you could stick in B'dochak, you could say that Rabbi Yehuda is talking, and only means Lachatchila, it's not good, b'di'evet it would be good. As far as the Psak, as far as Kriya Shema, we pass in like Rabbi Yehuda, that Lachatchila is supposed to hear what you say, b'di'evet Yosei. And therefore, the Psak should be over here, by Megillah also. Lachatchila, this Cheresh should not read the Megillah for others, but b'di'evet is Motzi. That would be a very valid pshat. But there are those that say that our Mishnah is by Megillah more machmir, and a Cheresh even b'di'evet would not be Motzi. And the Mishnah even talks about, does he have to read the Megillah for himself? He can't hear anybody else. Everybody else hears the Megillah, but the Cheresh he can't because he's deaf. Does he have to read the Megillah for himself? So some would say no, that Megillah Esther is different. It's only if you hear, and he doesn't have to read the Megillah. But the Maisa, there is also the poskim that say like Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore Lachatchila he's not Yotzei, but b'di'evet he is Yotzei, so he should read the Megillah. He can't hear the Megillah from anybody because he's deaf, but he should have to read the Megillah, and even though he's not hearing, b'di'evet he's Yotzei, and therefore that should be the halacha. as far as getting such a cheresh to read, Sholi Lachatchila is not good. Machlokas if the Evid is good. As far as the cheresh himself, this cheresh himself reading, if he could speak, so he should read the Megillah because he could be a pasuk like Rabbi Yehuda that the Megillah also, it goes like the regular halacha that the Chatchila he should hear it, but the Evid he can't. So then he's Yosef also. Just to point out that when sometimes people have a Megillah, this is halacha l'maisa. When people have a Megillah in shul and they're banking Haman, or they miss some kind of word, sometimes the people read the Megillah, but they should hear what they're saying. Sometimes with the whole racket that's going on, they saying it, but they don't hear it.
Not only that, I'm just now. If I want to read while the Chazan's reading, I can't read it out because other people near me can bother me.
Yeah, so it says over there, it says don't read that the Mishnah Berurah says that when you're reading the Megillah, don't bother other people. They're not listening to you, they're listening to the Chazan. And you're not supposed to read the other words, they're reading something else. So he says if you have a Megillah, don't read that other people could hear. But you do have to read that you should be able to hear.
Not easy, it depends how crowded the shul is.
Yeah. That's good. Good, nice point. You shouldn't disturb other people. That's regardless of our Gemara. You're disturbing other people.
Right, no, because I never thought
Yeah, you have to say it so loud.
I always thought you just have to
Say it, and even if it doesn't hear. But now we're saying you have to hear it. So if you have to hear it, surely lachatchila, and maybe even b'diavad, you have to hear what you say over here. Maybe they're more machmir over here than by
Is it
other.
enough that you would be able to hear if it's quiet, or you mamish have to hear?
I think you have to hear.
It's not easy because
I hear. Okay, Yashikor, that was the sugi for today. And B'ez Hashem tomorrow night at 6:45.
Yeshikach,
Yeshikor, everybody. Thank you.
Very much. Good Shabbos.